So, jetzt sind noch genau 5 Minuten bis zum Start. We have 5 minutes to go. 5 Minuten, dann geht es los mit dem Rennen der Damen. Wie gesagt, mit Nina Zöckeler aus Südtirol.
We continue our ongoing coverage of the EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup Tour. It's race number 3 of this opening day in Innsbruck, Austria, as we get set for the women's singles competition. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. There's a good aerial view of this track in the little village of Eagles, about 10 kilometers away from downtown Innsbruck. You must drive up the hill, past the ski jumps, through the village of Eagles, and then continue up through the forest to where this Olympic track is, site of 2 Olympic Games, a track that sits right alongside a very famous ski area. They have lowered, I should say increased the start. They've raised the start. It's lower than the men's start, but quite a bit higher than the women and the doubles have competed at in the last several seasons. There you see the men's start, and way below is the old women's start house, but the little triangle there is now where the women's competition begins. We saw speeds in the 73, 74 mile an hour range, 120 kilometers in the morning doubles races. Make it through this Kreisel, 270 degrees, which shoots the athletes down to the 8-9 combination. Curve 9 is always a challenge, and curve 10 has its difficulties as well. It's a high curve, but nothing has been more challenging over the past several seasons as this lower labyrinth. Austria almost gave away the podium down here just moments ago in run number 2 of the doubles. They did just hang on. For women's singles, as is the case with the men's singles competition, as you get a look at this construction site, including the big crane in the Kreisel, 30 will start. There were actually quite a few more trying to qualify in yesterday's Nations Cup competition. As the air is getting a little warmer, the ice temperature also a bit warmer than this morning, but still below freezing. They expect there may be some snow today here in Innsbruck. Whether that happens during the race, we'll find out. Barbara Allmeyer set that track record yesterday in the Nations Cup, same time that Teniska of Ukraine set the start record. Nina Zögler will lead things off for Italy. A lot of nations represented here, actually all weekend with the race in 23 nations, 115 athletes with 91 different sleds. Canada with 3 in today's competition. They only qualified 2 last week, so that's good news for Team Canada. Elsa Desmond was the last in the qualifying by 7 thousandths of a second. There's Ashley Farquharson. The American opened up her World Cup career several years ago here in Innsbruck, and she was in podium position after the first run. Kendi Apriod working on her reflexology and her agility. The Americans getting the sleds ready for Farquharson, Sweeney, and Summerbritcher. Team Sweden, Svante has qualified for the World Cup in tomorrow's competition, and I believe we'll see Tova. Yeah, Tova will be number 19. Emily Sweeney, she's been sick this week with a head cold. She was anything but last week in Lillehammer as she set the track record. We'll see how she does here on race day. Alina Bota, always one of the race favorites. We expect she'll have very fast starts. And well, now that this track is a little bit longer than it was in years past, that start time maybe doesn't have as big a difference, but it's still, of course, very important in the sport of luge.
Jetzt aber alle Augen nach oben Richtung Start. Start number 1, starting number 1.
So welcome to our viewers tuning in on YouTube around the world. Thank you so much for watching. Jackie, Craig, longtime luge fan. Craig, good to see you on our YouTube channel. I'm Tim Singer, going at it solo today, so I can use all the help I can. So send your comments, your questions, your complaints, your criticisms, or your trivia our way, and we will pass it along. 23-year-old Nina Zugler of Italy to open up run number 1. 30 start, 20 will qualify for the second run. Nina finished 15th at the Olympics in Beijing. Those were her first games, sliding in the shadow of her father, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, luger of all time. Two runs, total time competition in luge. We need to be consistent. We've seen more often than not an athlete has a great one run, but not so much the second run. If you're not perfect in both, you're not on the podium, or it's very unlikely. Austrian doubles did make it onto the podium earlier today, despite being imperfect down at the bottom. Nina Zugler to set things off here with a finish time that's a track record 46.972. That betters Altmaier's record yesterday by about a tenth of a second almost, maybe 5/600ths. So a good showing. It means the track's in good shape. Obviously, Nina got the good start order, the #1 position, by virtue of finishing 5th in yesterday's Nations Cup qualifying. Nina will head back to the top. They'll rework that sled. Those Italians have those luxury-looking sleds this year with the nice padding. Melina Fischer finished 15th last week in Lillehammer. Finished in 14th place, or 16th rather, at the World Cup last year in Innsbruck, which was her first full season on the World Cup. It actually wasn't even a full season for Melina last year in the World Cup. She raced in about half of the events. Her best result was a 10th on the track in Oberhof. Melina, 20 years old. She's from Zwickau. Her favorite track is her home track, Altenburg, where last year's World Championships were held. She has the advantage over Zugler. She doesn't have the perfect exit of corner 9. But still, 1700ths is a lot to pass along down here at the bottom. So she should remain in the green here. As so far, they are holding the form from yesterday's Nations Cup, as Patrick Leitner and two of his best, Cheyenne Rosenthal and Jessica Degenhardt, watch down in the coaches area.
Ja, das wird jetzt wahrscheinlich noch einige Male so weitergehen mit dem Bahnrekord. Ich glaube, der könnte heute auf alle Fälle unter 46,50 stehen am Ende des Bewerbes.
We will try not to get too excited every time you see a track record flash up on your screen, because very simply put, any first place time will be a track record in this opening run of competition. Dorothy Schwarz finished 3rd yesterday in the Nations Cup, which is exactly the position she was in, 3rd place last week in Lillehammer in the Nations Cup. That's a race in which she finished 9th at the end of the World Cup event. Casual but smooth paddles there and a nice settle. She should give away a little time here at the start, we'll see. Yeah, she's a tenth of a second back with that start time. It's a long start time, that interval, about 9 seconds. Whereas some tracks you have that start time flash up after 2 or 3 seconds. Dorothy, we presume, might be on board all season long, as Austria has 4 very strong women, with Schwarz and Altmaier coming out of the qualifying group, Schulte and Egla, the seeded athletes. Struggling to keep up right now with the German, and she does it though with a good surge down at the bottom by 13 thousandths of a second, still holding true to form from yesterday's Nations Cup qualifying, with Schwarz leading over Fischer and Zugler with 2 qualifiers remaining.
Der jungen Tirolerin aus Absam in der Nähe von Innsbruck.
Always a little nerve-wracking to compete for the first time as a full-time World Cupper on your home track. Friends and family are there. Obviously, that's nice to have, but often a little bit of extra pressure for these athletes to perform well. Now Sandra Robacher, or Sandy, as you see on her helmet, one of the senior members now of this Luge World Cup Tour, only 28 years old, but she's been on the World Cup national team for more than 10 years. The sled that has been manufactured by 2 Italian doubles Olympic medalists, Ozzy Hasselrieder, Willy Huber. The 2-time Olympian has built a 1/10 of a second advantage here, a third of the way down the track. Entering the Kreisel now. Lots of cameras, lots of spectators, probably a lot of glue vine as well being enjoyed here on a Saturday afternoon. Beautiful exit of curve 9. This should be a first place time if the labyrinth is clean. Still a 1/10 of a second up. Sandra Robacher on her home track, but looking forward to an Olympics in her home country, a 46.685. Not only are these first place times all track records, but they're already a ½ second faster than any of the times that were put down yesterday by these 5 first women in the Nations Cup. So the track is in great shape despite the temperature being relatively warm.
Ja, das erwartete Spektakel erleben wir also jetzt auch bei den Damen. Der neue Start, die neue Starthöhe, das hat sich bezahlt gemacht. Das ist eine wirklich tolle Geschichte.
Sandra pleased with run number 1, track record with the exclamation point, our graphic tells us. And now we have yesterday's winner for the 2nd week in a row in Nations Cup, just like the American doubles team. This is the Austrian Barbara Allmeyer, 21 years old, from the town of Rinn. And actually Aldrins, Hall, these are all small little villages not far from Eagles and Innsbruck, the Tyrolean region. This is a sled built by Peter Pence, an Olympic silver medalist in doubles at the 2018 Olympic Games, and also the guy you hear shouting at the top every time an Austrian starts. Cheers ring out in the Kreisel. Can Barbara find the green down here? Looks to be favorable. Austria fast down at the bottom of the track. The lines are really good for this young Austrian. But she falls back a little further, a 1/10 of a second. A lot to make up here. Speed is good, 73.7. Fastest speed of the race, but she can't find additional time at the top. So Barbara Allmeyer becomes the first of those 5 top qualifiers to not hold her position from yesterday, as she falls back into 4th place of the 5 that have gone. Sandra Robacher, the winner, if you will, of that qualifying group to start this first run, but now come all of the seeded athletes, those who didn't have to qualify yesterday. Run number 1 continues here from Eagles Austria. In messaging with Emily Sweeney yesterday, she told me she was battling a head cold during the week, and so she missed a few training runs, including yesterday's final training run, the seated training group. But Emily was as fast as anyone last week. She didn't win the race in Lillehammer, but she set a track record. Was on the podium twice in the weekend in both women's singles and in the mixed team singles event. Her start time is the fastest so far. Not bad for an athlete who has had wrist and shoulder injuries throughout her career, to go along with a broken neck, by the way. 1300s up. Warm welcome to the swing team watching this morning from Saranac Lake, New York. Emily's parents made the trip to Norway to see her fantastic performance last week, and she could be matching it here, the first of the seeded group to go, 46.685. A huge advantage over the rest of the qualifying group. Emily always with the big smile down below, rivaled only by Julia Tobitz in the smile category after her runs, especially the good ones. Fastest start time, fastest down time for the first of 4 from the USA in today's World Cup race. Green light, that means no sled check. If you get that red light, it means that the sled will be checked or the athlete will be weighed. One of those lights means they'll take that whole sled apart. You don't want that light. Now Kendia Apariod from Latvia. Kendia, a couple of podiums in her career, including on her home track last season. She's 27 years old from Sigulda, part of a double brother-sister team that for the first time ever got to compete in the mixed team event in singles last week in Lillehammer. Kendia finished 12th in that World Cup opener in Norway last week, just ahead of her teammate Bota. Well in back of the American here at the midway point, but a nice job out of curve 9. She was 2,500ths back, so she can have that lead. That'll be a good sign, but it looks like she's staying right there and skidding a bit now into the labyrinth. She'll drop a little more time to Emily, 2,600, not bad, but 4th place behind USA, Italy, and Austria at the moment. 2600 of a second behind. Focus on the eyes of the 27-year-old from Sigulda. Pretty good paddles, as she had the 6th fastest start time. USA vor Italien und Österreich der momentane Stand, aber wir wissen, die Besten der Welt, die kommen erst. Okay. Now waiting on deck, we have Austria's best hope, and certainly one of the race favorites, Madeline Egla. She'll be up after this next sled, which is our 2nd in a row from Latvia. Zana Kaluma is 20 years old, competes in both singles and doubles, although not every week. She's experimenting a little bit with both of these disciplines. Born in Riga, now lives in Sakstrasti, Latvia. Her 2 favorite tracks are 2 we do not visit every year. La Plagne, France, St. Moritz, Switzerland. But La Plagne will be the track at the Olympic Games in 2030. So that's exciting news. Can you believe it? There'll actually be an Olympics at a track that's already built. No stress. Zane with trouble out of curve number 9. She manages not to hit the near wall, but she did a lot of skidding in the correction. She'll bleed a bunch of time here and will likely be back in 6th place here when she crosses the finish. 8th place, lost a lot of time, 47 seconds even. This is where the correction happened. You can see that the runner, the Kufin, just touched the base of the wall. And any time mistakes farther up on the track. If you're going to make a mistake, you want it to be on the final curve. But even then, with the big uphill finish, let's just keep it simple. You don't want mistakes. Now it is attention to the top. It's only the 9th starter out of 30 in this race, but this could be the time to beat in about a minute. Certainly a race favorite. Madeline Egla. Madeline, a 12-time winner in the World Cup. She's been on the national team for 9 years. Was kind of slow, had mixed results over her first 4 or 5 seasons. A few flashes of brilliance, a few disasters. But as she has the start record here, Egla came onto her own about 4 seasons ago. And outside a crash at the Olympics, she has been consistent, steady, and among the best in the world, week in and week out. 3rd last year in the World Cup standings. Madeline finished 7th in Lillehammer. Nice job of the exit. She's holding her own very well against the American. This split time says she's up by a 1/4 of a second. Will this be the time to beat for all of the remaining sleds? It could possibly be. Egla, 46.161. That is, if this run took place 2 days ago, it would have been a track record by over a second, or if it had taken place yesterday late in the Nations Cup. That's how good this run was. Madeline tends to get nervous at races, and for a lot of these losers, once you have run 1 down and you've negotiated that well, often 2/3 of the pressure is off, depending on where you are in the standings, of course, and how close it is. But a lot of the tension, a lot of the stress is generally the night before, the morning of, right up to that first run. Taking a little time to bask in the glow of the Austrian spectators. Summer Bricher, 30 years old, up now for the USA. Began the sport in 2006. Was on the national team starting in 2013, and just like that in her first year on the senior team, she qualified for the Olympic Games in Sochi. Summer, a 5-time World Cup winner, lists as her favorite music acoustic and instrumental covers. So she would enjoy seeing my band play. Out of the Kreisel and trailing already by 0.3 of a second behind Madeline Egla. Summer's line's looking very good, but it just gives you an idea of how powerful the Austrian was from start to finish. Summer Bricher of the United States crosses in 3rd place behind Madeline Egla and her teammate, Emily Sweeney. It's Austria, USA, Italy, and Austria, the top 5, as 10 have completed their first runs, 20 still to go.
Okay, Summer Bricher 46, 46.6 to the finish time for the US girls. Summer Bricher.
Really nice transition from 9 to 10 for Summer Bricher. With the aerodynamic position, that head tucked way back. Summer refusing to acknowledge our camera. Focused already on her second run to move up in the standings. Italy's Verena Hofer up now. Born in Brixen, now makes her home in Veltons. Began the sport in 2015. Her 2 favorite tracks, Sochi and Yangzheng. Sochi was the site of the 2020 World Championships and, of course, the 2014 Olympics. The Russian program and the Russian track are still not part of World Cup Luge, and that gets revisited every year. And while we certainly understand the reasoning for that, we can say we miss some of our Russian friends. We miss a beautiful location in Sochi. But the matter at hand here, Italy, Verena Hofer, she's trailing Egla by 37 hundredths. It's been Madeline Egla and the rest of the world right now. Verena will need to be perfect just to have a 3rd or 4th place run here. And she has a nice bottom part of the track, 46.649. as she places herself behind the Americans, but just ahead of her teammate Sandra Robacher. Top 5, 2 Italians, 2 Americans, but all 4 of them trailing Austrian Madeleine Egler. Just how important is the home track? It's tough to say. Certain tracks, it's very important. Suffice it to say, a majority of the USA's race wins have been in Lake Placid. A majority of Austria's victories have been here on their home track. You know it, you love it, and everyone else has to learn it. Here's a woman that only gets to race on her home track every few years, and that home track really isn't much of a home track. St. Moritz, they don't do a lot of luge sliding there outside of the World Cup training week and races. Natalie, a world championship medalist last year in the sprint competition. She trains with the Germans, so she'll know those tracks very well. And that world championship medal last year was in Altenburg. 27 years old from Wernitzhausen, Switzerland. She loves skiing, and that's mandatory if you live in Switzerland, you have to. Not perfect out of curve 9, but not a disaster either. Everyone trailing Madeleine Egler by about the same margin at the same spot in the track. So it's a really good race for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th right now. In fact, about 1/10 of a second separates 2nd place from 5th place, but no one within 36 hundredths of the leader, Madeleine Egler.
Gegenüber den Bockfahrern Tausendsekunden Zeitmessung und da sind sie trotzdem noch zeitgleich, also auch die Tausendelsekunde nach dem ersten Durchgang Nathalie Mark und Sandra Bretscher. Also unten ist die Eidgenossin sehr, sehr schnell gefahren.
Nice job of staying relaxed, keeping the head back, and avoiding that wall with just the subtlest of corrections for the runner. Natalie also looking a little disconsolate down there at the bottom. Well, Emily Sweeney has had this sizzling fast run. Summer Britcher has the resume with 5 victories, but it's possible that Ashley Farquharson has been the steadiest of the American women over the last couple of seasons, including a 4th place finish last year in Innsbruck, just off of the podium behind Austria and Germany. Way back in her first year on a crazy weather day, her first year on the World Cup Tour, Ashley was in podium position after the first run here on the Eagles track. Already well behind Madeleine Egler, 17 hundredths. Keeping in mind, if she keeps this under 3/10 of a second, she'll be top 2. Carson, 25 years old. Major problem out of curve number 9. She'll give it all away. We are talking 4 or 5 tenths she'll give away, and this is likely going to be 10th at best, if not down in 12th place. 13th, 47.025. One little mistake will cost you everything on this Eagles track, especially if it happens out of curve 9.
United States of America, position 13.
Comes a little hard off of 9. Nothing she could do to stay off the first wall. The ricochet effect, nothing she could do to stay off the second wall. And nothing she can say. Ashley Farquharson does get a finish time, and she will be back for run number 2. Our 3rd Latvian, Alina Bota. You may know her as Alina Vitola. Alina got married over the summer to a man who earlier today won gold in men's doubles, Martin Spatz. That's the name Bota, with the ending of A in the Latvian names, ending in vowels for the females, ending in S for the men. Let's get back to the luge. through the Kreisel. Alina, who had the third fastest start time. Madeline still with the fastest start time. See how close she can keep it. And she's challenged Sweeney for second. Right now, it's not looking favorable. The form is great down here at the bottom, tucking the head back, every aerodynamic advantage, but not within a half second, or just within a half second of the lead. It's currently 6th place for Latvia's Alina Bota, as we near the midway point of run number 1.
From Latvia, 4900 of the second behind 10, the Austrian Madeleine Egle with 46.60.
Still ahead. We have some of the best in the world, including Tobits and Scholta, Olympic silver medalist Anna Bierreiter. They're coming up to conclude this seeded group. Love to see these Latvian fans. They travel all over the world. Here's Mirla Frabel, 21-year-old from Suhl, outside of Oberhof, Germany. She's the defending world champion, but I qualify that. She's the world champion in the under 23 category, the race within the race for the youngest of the competitors at the world. She won that event last year in Altenburg. The actual world champion still to come. Mirla finished 14th on this INNSBRUCK track last season. Still looking for her first ever World Cup win, but she has a couple of podiums. On her home track at Oberhof, finished just off the podium in her first World Cup season at the World Championships in Oberhof in 2023. Down here at the bottom, negotiating pretty good lines. The speed isn't quite there. 5th place time right now for Mirla Frabel, behind American Summer Bridget.
4700 of a second behind 10, the Austrian Egle.
Mirla does not have perfect eyesight, so she says she slides without visual aid, and that cuts both ways. We've heard about athletes in luge and the sliding sports that don't have the best of eyesight, but sometimes they try to work that to their advantage and rely on feel, which many athletes will tell you is as important, if not better, than seeing. Thumbs down. Now we've got two strong contenders to challenge Madeleine Egle. We're late in the seeded group here, but first up we have the World Cup winner from last week and the defending World Cup champion. She'll be followed by the world champion, Lisa Scholta, on deck, but here's Julia Tobits. Tobits last week won on the World Cup for the 28th time. She's a 4-time overall World Cup winner, inheriting the throne of Queen of Luge from her longtime teammate, Natalie Geisenberger, the all-time winningest Luger. Tobits tends to give away some time at the start. So 1800s is by far the closest we've seen anyone challenge Egle among the last 5 sleds, 6 sleds or so, but it's not going to be enough to take over the lead. The best Tobits can hope for right now is to move out ahead of the American Emily Sweeney, and she does. It's Austria, Germany, USA, Switzerland, USA. In fact, the Swiss and American sliders, Maag and Britcher, are tied to the 1,000th of a second in 4th place. But Tobits doesn't give you everything at the start. In fact, she had the 5th fastest start time. That's pretty good for Julia. Rarely is a mistake made. Patrick Leitner looked sincerely upset that she didn't take over the lead, but Madeleine, if she has any challenger remaining in this race, it's likely the next athlete. And a hello to Norbert Lach, the longtime German coach who built up, helped build up, or at least maintain the powerful German program. He's on hand to watch the action in his first year of retirement. Lisa Schulte, 23 years old. You might say a surprise world champion last year in Altenburg, a bit of a surprise, but Lisa has been coming on. Still looking for her first World Cup victory. She's had some podiums, including last week in Lillehammer, where she took bronze. 1400s back. She keeps it within 0.2 of a second here. This should be a top 3. Now it's trending in her favor. In fact, it should be Austria 1-2 unless Lisa makes a mistake here. Losing a bit of time. She's going to fall behind Tobitz. Should stay in front of Sweeney, but it's going to be close. Third place, 2700s. Egla, Tobitz, Schulte, Sweeney, Bog, and Rich are tied for 5th. That's the top 5 right now through the seeded group. That's how it will very likely remain. And I stand corrected, we have one more in the seeded group, and it's a very formidable challenge coming up from Anna Bierreiter, and then we move to the other qualifiers. Rare are the mistakes from Austrian athletes on their home track. Grabbing the handles now, Bavarian Anna Bierreiter. Standout junior singles athlete, and on her just her 3rd year on the World Cup, she captured silver medal at the Olympic Games in Beijing. Born in Berchtesgaden, lives in Berchtesgaden. Coached by Patrick Leitner, even before Patrick was the overall World Cup coach, national team coach. Patrick worked closely with his Bavarian sliders, among them Anna. Her start time was the 3rd fastest. So far, she's within 1/4 of a second. We're looking at 4th place, unless some speed can be found down here below. 4th at best. Now she's bleeding some more time, so she will fall potentially out of the top 5. Anna Bierreiter, the final of the seeded group, is run number 1, 7th place, a 46.627. Those 2 men there that you just saw, Lesch and Leitner, 2-time Olympic medalists, including gold in Salt Lake City 2002 in men's doubles. Anna, very calm on that sled, wavers a little, and that steering costs you time for sure, but it also avoids bigger problems. So the way it's going to shape up after run number 1, with still the qualifiers to come, we have Egla leading with a wide margin as, again, former head coach, current head coach of Team Germany. Tobitz 2nd, Schulte of Austria 3rd, Sweeney of the USA 4th, and then Maag, Switzerland, Britcher, USA tied for 5th. Now off to the qualifiers. Tova Koala of Sweden had that dreaded position first out by finishing 6th in the qualifying. That was a great finish for her, but it keeps her after the seeded group here. Tova's mother, Anne, big supporter of the sport of luge, and for the first time representing the jury. She's part of the race jury here in Innsbruck this week. Tova's brother, Svante, will be sliding tomorrow men's singles. Without a doubles team, we will not see Sweden in the team relay this weekend, but it was great seeing brother and sister last week in the mixed singles event. To the finish, 19th place. Only the top 20 will qualify in run number 2. So Tova will keep an eye on that. Her brother Svante qualified in 19th place last week, the World Cup opener. It's always a nerve-wracking position. She's going to watch very closely the next sleds. 3 out of the next 4 are from Canada. In fact, the next 4 represent all of the remaining North American lugers. Welcome to our Polish fans, our Swiss fans are watching on the YouTube, chatting in. Now we have 21-year-old Caitlin Nash. Caitlin broke onto the World Cup when she was just a teenager, and that was in doubles. Not only was it in doubles, it was in doubles before there was women's doubles. Caitlin teamed up with Natalie Corliss to take part in a men's doubles race, because those of you who know the history of luge know that doubles, before there were women and men, it was open to anyone. You just rarely, if ever, saw women in the races. Caitlin and her teammate Trinity Ellis did qualify in the field last week, but they did. But Carolyn Maxwell, who's coming up, missed out on the racing, so it'll be fun to see her debut in a moment. 0.6 of a second back. We will not pay as much attention now at the times as we will at that number 20 when they cross the finish line. It's a number 19 right now for Caitlin Nash. She bumps Kohala back onto the bubble into 20th position.
Und jetzt haben sie natürlich viele Junge und müssen wieder Aufbauarbeit betreiben.
Caitlin has been on the podium in women's doubles, including in Park City in 2022-23 season, where she had a 3rd place result.
Im zweiten Durchgang durften ja nochmal die 20 Schnellsten an den Start gehen. Für sie spannend wird, ob sich das noch aufgeht.
Coach Robert Vegg has coached a number of countries over the years, including the USA. And here is American Emma Erickson, 21 years old, sliding out of the Wasatch Club in Utah, Park City, Utah, program where John Owen has really gets lost in the shadows of the Lake Placid group. And John Owen has probably been developing athletes as long as anyone in the world now in the sport of luge, including a lot of superstars for the American program out of Utah. Emma had a little rough go with a crash last week in Lillehammer. She crossed the finish line, but did not get a second run. Nice exit out of corner 9 for the 21-year-old American. Also enjoys ski racing and volleyball. Those were her sporting careers prior to luge. 0.7 of a second back, 16th place. That will likely get her into the second run. He did. Step back a bit. She may have made the second run last week. I'll have to recheck that. I only have the top 15 in front of me. But Emma Erickson, her first full season on the World Cup after getting a taste of it last year, as the USA travels 4 around the world right now in women's singles. And currently, 2 of them are in the top 5 in the standings in this race. Carolyn Maxwell has been on the World Cup for a number of seasons now, but off and on. Her best year was the 2018-2019 season, where she had 3 top 10s for Canada. She's the last of a dying breed, along with her doubles teammates. Carolyn is a product of the Calgary program, the large city east of where the track is in Whistler now. Calgary, the site of the Olympics, and really the birthplace of luge in Canada for so many years, leading up to those Olympic medals in 2018 by Alex Goff and the team relay squad, Sam and Tristan, and Justin. a big moment, big week that was for Team Canada. Carolyn out of curve number 9, split time out of 10 into the lower labyrinth, has her 0.7 of a second back. This will be close to the top 20. Will she bump her teammate? She doesn't. It's Caitlin Nash still sitting in 20th place. Carolyn Maxwell will not get a second run. But all things considered, a few tiny mistakes, but not too bad. Carolyn Maxwell here, run number 1.
Wir bleiben in Kanada. Es ist als nächste am Start die 2 Jahre jüngere Teamkollegin von Maxwell, nämlich Trinity Ellis. Trinity Ellis kommt aus British Columbia, 21 Jahre jung.
2 Canadians done, and 1 getting ready to go at the top. So with Robert Fegg doing the coaching, he's proven success. Duncan Kennedy setting up the sleds. He's had some fast ones over the years. We would expect to see improvement by the Canadians, and Trinity Ellis would be the first to tell you that last season finishing 16th on the World Cup with all of her results in the teens. Very simply, her goal is to crack the top 10 maybe in a few races this year. First thing she'll need to do is to get a little more favorable start position with the Nations Cup qualifying. Here's the 22-year-old, originally from Vancouver. Calls her home Pemberton, British Columbia. Trinity's favorite track is the one in Königssee, currently rather under construction, but ready to host a World Cup next season in Bavaria. 0.7 of a second back. This is also challenging her teammate Caitlin Nash for the top 20, and she is in 21st place, just missing out by about 0.07 of a second, 0.06 of a second. So Canada qualifies as of now 1 into the top 20. Caitlin Nash still sitting on the bubble. Trinity and Carolyn out for run number 2. Canada looking to make that slow progress, and it'll be interesting to see if they take part in all 4 of the World Cup races in January here in Europe, or whether they get a little extra time on their home track in Whistler in advance of the World Championships. Juliana Tunitska set a start record yesterday of 9.428. And just like Ellis, who came down right before her, Tunitska started on the World Cup at a very young age. In Juliana's case, I believe her first World Cup race, she was 16 years old. Now 21, let's check out this start time. A 9.41, that's really disappointing when you consider she had the start record yesterday. This is only the 11th fastest start time. Of course, all 10 of those ahead of her are probably out of the seeded group, which could very well be why she set that start record yesterday. Tunitska has had some good runs over the course of her career. Nothing consistent, nothing spectacular, but she is now trying to challenge Caitlin Nash. She has to be better than 8,800s back. She's not a second in back. No second run for Ukraine here. Unfortunate for the Ukrainian program, because both Stetchkiv and Shmaha, the other 2 Ukrainian women, did not qualify for today's World Cup race. Elena just missed out. I think Elena Shmaha may have had a crash in that seeded group, so somewhat dubious weekend for Ukrainian women's singles. But we will no doubt see them tomorrow, not only with the men, with Dukash and Mansi, but in the team relay. Yeah, let's get those snowsuits a little muddy. See, these are thrill seekers, future losers. Now from Romania, Karina Buzătoi, 22 years old. Top 10 finisher in Altenburg last year at the World Championship under 32 women's singles event, and also part of a Romanian team relay that finished in the top 10 at the Worlds. Buzatoy needs to have a top 20 time here to qualify for run number 2. 5 to follow. This is the 25th out of 30 in run number 1 on what's been a very, very busy day of Luge. 3 races. Finish time, 47.199, 24th place. Karina, the lone entrant from Romania in women's singles, now that Raluca has made the full transition to doubles. So by virtue of that, Karina Buzatoy will be in the team relay tomorrow. Really nice line, at least for a while out of curve 9. And then the setup for 10 was a little rough. Hulian Hu is 24 years old from the Sichuan province of China. She's been on the national team since 2015. It will be really fascinating to see how the Chinese team does at the World Cup finale on their home track. Fascinating for a couple of reasons. One is this nation's done a great job of not only keeping its program together, but growing it following the 2022 Olympics. Also because since it's the last race and since it's so far away from most of these athletes, you gotta wonder if it'll be a full field of competitors at that World Cup finale. Titles will already have been decided, but all things considered, it could be a good week for China. Meantime, here in Eagles and last week in Lillehammer, they haven't really qualified many of their sleds into the World Cup. So a great showing for Hu. Will not make it into a second run, but she has a rather uneventful opening run. 26th place. And over there on the left, Wolfgang Schädler, a long-time luger from Liechtenstein, a long-time coach of the USA program, guiding the United States to his first ever World Cup medal or Olympic medals in the late 90s and early 2000s. Great to see Wolfie here at the track.
Es ist ja eher peinlich, wenn ich die Körpersprache deuten kann. Das hätte sich sparen können, aber das Ganze ist nächstes Jahr Geschichte. Da haben wir dann eine wirklich sehr, sehr komfortable.
Really nice piece of driving, and China still has to develop its athleticism, its equipment, and certainly its experience. And that was a little eventful finish tunnel, but she seems okay. One run and done for China. Let's see those Polish flags here on our YouTube chat, because here's Klaudia Domaracka, 24 years old from Helenia Góra, Poland. Part-time student, part-time luger. Not only trains with the German team, but the German technicians help with the Polish sleds. Claudia lists as her favorite spots to visit, holiday locations. She says wherever it's warm, which was really every World Cup stop last year in the second half of the season. Half second back. Track still looks like decent shape, which is a credit to the chief of the track, Reinhard Pola, for the job he's done with all of these sleds coming down. 150 competitive sleds or so on this first day of World Cup action. 1.1 seconds remaining, or the deficit, I should say, behind Madeline Egla. Madeline went early. She has a big lead over the rest of the field. Again, we have a few sleds remaining, but it's Austria's Egla, Germany's Tobitz, Austria's Lisa Schulte in third, Emily Sweeney of the United States in 4, and Natalie Mogg and Summer Britcher tied for 5th. These are athletes you would expect to be in the top 5, and they are right behind them. Anna Bierreiter, another pre-race favorite. Well, we have a Canadian sitting on the bubble, Caitlin Nash in 20th place. And all things considered, we have a dual citizen getting ready to knock her out of the top 20. This is Argentina's Veronica Ravena, who has grown up and trained on the track in Whistler, Canada. Veronica, 26 years old, former Youth Olympic flag bearer. She held the Argentinian flag at the Youth Olympics 2016 in Lillehammer. Veronica had put in some pretty consistent results, relatively speaking, last year, where she did qualify for a number of World Cup races. That was progress compared to previous seasons, and she's looking really good with her lines. Veronica also, at various points in her career, has had the advantage of training with the Germans. Ravena to the finish, 28th place. It is possible that this track is now starting to give away some time. We don't expect any of these late athletes to challenge for the top 15, but often from some of these more experienced athletes, you'll see better than 28th out of 28. So I'm a little surprised to see that from Veronica. I didn't pick up any mistakes. I don't necessarily have the keen eye, but look at that exit of 9. That's a pretty good line. Some of these athletes not pleased with the camera being in their face, especially after what they deem to be a somewhat disappointing run. Haisan Jung, next to go, second to last to go. Korea is here. They're doing a very reduced schedule this season, only attending a few of the races, but bringing a selection of young athletes to the races to gain some experience. Listen, not one of those young athletes. She'll be the mentor to some of these. She's 29 years old. Competed at 5 world championships over her career. Her best result was in 24th at the Worlds in Sochi, Russia in 2020. 1/2 second back here. And we've seen that sometimes double on the bottom part of the track here with the last several sleds. Already out of the top 20, as you see. Caitlin Nash about ready to celebrate here with 1 sled remaining. 29th place. So really everyone's finish time in the last few sleds has matched their start number, which is unfortunate. No progress being made.
Damit Rang 29. Damit hat sie Feierabend. Braucht heute nicht mehr ran. Kann sich als Zuschauer hier
Our final competitor, just qualifying by 7/1000ths of a second, born in England, moved to Ireland, grew up in Ireland, now lives in Iceland, an emergency room medical doctor, Elsa Desmond. Elsa is part of the FIL team, which is a team made up of a lot of the smaller nations that don't necessarily have their own national federations. In fact, Elsa was telling me that all of her teammates, coaches, supporters are down at the finish, rooting her on. What would be the goal for Elsa? Tough to say. Top 20 puts her in a tough, that'll be a tough proposition this late. Finishing anything above her number 30 start number would probably be a small consolation. But already 4/10ths of a second back. Elsa lists as her favorite tracks Sigulda and Altenburg. These are 2 tracks that are not necessarily that popular amongst the majority of lugers. It certainly shows that she likes a challenge. 1 second back, it'll be one and done for Elsa as she's having trouble down here in the lower labyrinth, using all of her athletic skill to stay on the sled. Hard hits even at the finish line. So a 30th place finish, and there's the FIL team showing their support for Elsa Desmond of Team Ireland.
Da hat sie noch einmal einen spannenden Abgang geliefert, also die letzte Teilnehmerin des ersten Durchgangs. Damit, meine Damen und Herren, ist der erste Durchgang Geschichte.
Elsa will not be part of the team relay tomorrow, but she had the great opportunity last week to take part in the debut mixed singles competition, which this year features athletes from different nations able to compete on the same team if they can't field their own team. Elsa was part of the team with Japan's Kobayashi. We'll hope to do that at the next team event in Oberhof.
Eine gute, angenehme Pause, eine halbe Stunde ungefähr könnt ihr euch erholen. Geht bitte an die diversen Verpflegungsstände, holt euch was, wärmt euch, denn das Finale wird...
Race standings midway through as Elsa, it's a little debrief with Ann Koala, jury member. Madeline Egla leading the way. 2/10 is a pretty wide margin on this Eagles track over Tobitz, Schulte, and Sweeney, with Mogg and Britcher tied for 5th place. Still a lot of podium positions at stake, especially 3rd place and 2nd place. There could be some shuffling as all of these on page number 2 will hope to at least move up a few places. Caitlin Nash makes it on the bubble for Canada, and despite a very rough run, American Ashley Farquharson also gets a 2nd run. So there'll be 4 from the USA, 3 from Germany, 4 from Austria, I believe. Actually 4 from Germany. So USA, Austria, and Germany make up 12 of the 20 in run number 2. That run is coming up at 15:27 local time. We'll be back on at 15:22. which is in about 20 minutes. So stick around for the final run of Luge Racing from Eagles coming up in just a bit from Innsbruck.